Ready, kids?
Aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
You're invisible. You're invisible.
Ahoy there, mateys. It's time to set sail on another episode of Unconstitutional Awakening, the podcast. I'm your captain, Jim Bob Ogleshorts, and tonight we're bringing back show friend and sponsor, Brett Pike of ClassicalLearner.com and Homeschools Connected. Man, I've had him on here a couple times in the past, and I really admire the guy and believe he is a catalyst for world change. And any opportunity I get to talk to him is a great opportunity. And this time I got lucky and actually got some of the squad on with me. Luis is going to be joining me, and throughout the evening, you're going to see Neptune and even Kelkel join in with us. So this has been a really good conversation, and I think that it's a positive step forward, man. You know, there's a lot going on in the world today, and Brett reiterates something that I think I talk about a lot myself too, which is, you know, do it yourself, self-sufficiency, and taking matters back into our own hands. Quit waiting for daddy government to come along and do something about it, because it's not going to happen. It's up to us to make a better tomorrow, and we can do that by building a community strong between many of us, doing things positively, moving forward in this lifetime instead of whatever the hell kind of clown show is going on over there in Washington. Like, come on, guys. Do we really want to continue with all that nonsense and keep trying to vote in another color tyrant every 4 years? That's like something boomers did. I thought we were better than that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just, ha ha ha. But seriously, I really think you guys are going to enjoy tonight's conversation. There's a lot of good points made, a lot of good talking aspects of things, and some good laughs. You know, Brett's a funny guy, and of course I'm always trying to pull a laugh, even if it's just a dry one. But, you know, not only will you be able to find anything that we've talked about tonight at your favorite website ever, unconstitutionalawakening.com, but as normal, you can definitely get back to Brett Pike, because he's down there in our Friends in Liberty with everybody else: Kirk Elliott, Peachy Key Creations, Ammo Can, and Pure Pet Wellness. And of course, this one right here, and with the books, is his Cubs to Bears books that he wrote when he started doing this whole thing. And I like the way he's going about teaching things, man, and it's all right here. And if you use that code of his, freedom, you'll get yourself a discount and be a part of this homeschool community, which he seems to be keep growing. There's also some other cool things over there at the website, man. You can find the links to watch us if you just listen to us, and to listen to us if you just watch us. You can listen to us right there on the website. There's also some cool links back up in here to get back to your favorite hosts, and to, watch me on the Red Pill Project, see what Kelkel's up to, see what Tristan's up to, see what's just going on with the rest of the crew and stuff like that, and even catch us in other places where we've been invited to be guests on other people's podcasts. Man, it's a whole lot of fun doing all this stuff, and as I can't reiterate enough, it's you guys that make me do it. Like, I'm here doing this for everyone, each and every one of you out there worldwide, giving us a listen and giving us a watch and giving us the love that you're giving us, man. So, you can also show your support with the show by getting yourself some of this sweet Unconstitutional Awakening merch. There's a link over there for that too, man. You can get you some shirts. They've got hats, and they've even got these stickers that we've been giving out with the Unconstitutional Awakening sticker giveaway. All you've got to do is go over there and answer that uh, answer the pirate riddle that'll be at the end of each episode at unconstitutionalawakening.com in the podcast and more section underneath the episode. We've totally only had one winner so far, but that's no big. I figure you got episodes to catch up on, and we'll see them cashing in to get these stickers here soon. And hopefully, I can get another round of stickers and we can start all over again. So, I do appreciate you guys, and I reckon it's time that we weigh anchor and set sail on this guy. So, let's hit it. Good evening, everyone. As I was telling you guys in the opening there, I've got Brett Pike finally back over here with me to join us for this evening. You guys know I always give him that shout out at the beginning of every episode because I totally support what he's doing over there with Classical Learner and Homeschools Connected, man. Like things like he's doing is the kind of things that I really appreciate because he's changing tomorrow for the better and from my perspective. So I am excited to have him back and have him over here with a conversation. And for the first time, have somebody with me because every time I tend to get him over here, man, it's me flying solo. But Luis is here with me tonight because I can always rely on my buddy to be here with me. How you doing tonight, Luis?
Great. And there's so much happening. So there's so much direction, so many directions we can go.
Nice. Brett, how's things been, man? How's holidays? How you doing? How's the fam?
Yeah, everything's good. I love the holidays. The kids, just to see the smiles on their face and the joy. And I'm in the South now, and I moved from New York, so it's a little tough not being with my mom and my dad and being able to see them, my siblings. But they didn't want to leave Babylon yet, and we all make our choices. So
Hey, Luis, we make constant jokes
I'm
about
trapped.
Luis.
I get you. I'm trapped.
Yeah,
I'm currently trapped.
he's up there in New York City, and we make constant jokes about him being the future Snake Plissken because he's gonna have to escape from New York eventually because that's probably not the place to be. I actually didn't realize you started in upstate New York. I knew you were down here in the South, not too far from me, just a state over. And that I always like that because I was like, shoot, man, he ain't far. Maybe one day we can run across one another. But I spent some time in upstate New York myself. Actually, I was in Buffalo for a few years, off and on. I don't know why so many people end up coming from that area. I'm surprised about that.
I wasn't upstate. I was on Long Island. That's where I
Nice,
grew up.
nice.
Although I did go to school, my college at Cortland, which is along the way to Buffalo, but Buffalo's way up north.
New York's a big state. People don't realize that there's a whole
Well,
different.
what is it? Almost 60% is like wild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like people had a hard time believing me when I would tell them that when you're in Buffalo, New York, when the people in the area that I was in were the definition of Southern hillbilly hicks, like flannel shirts, country music, beer drinking, NASCAR.
So is the Adirondacks.
And
I mean, in my
I was
experience,
just
it
like,
was
whoa.
like,
I was
wait,
like, this was not what I was expecting for this area. Like, I heard all kinds of different things, and I got there, and I don't know. New York was fun. I worked. I pumped gas when I was up there, and so I was constantly in the hands of the people. So it was interesting meeting the folks from that area.
That's actually most of New York, where most of New York is just rural, um, regular based folks. But people
yeah,
they think of New York City, which is because it's just such a big city. It eats everything, and kind of like a zombie. Takes its mask off and rears its ugly head, and everyone else has to suffer the consequences.
what's worse is when it came to the state election, how the hell did Hochul win when she did everything wrong? Like, I am so sad because everybody I meet here, and I mean everybody that is older than 30, did not like her, despised her. I mean, like me, there's no young people are stupid. They just don't understand what the hell she was doing. And business owners, all of them hate her existence unless they were highly insulated because they're ultra rich
So,
or her policies somehow made the money.
did you see that back and forth with her and Zeldin in their little debate or whatever?
I mean, it was almost non-existent. She had nothing to fight with.
I know. I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. I love when they run themselves dry. Politicians run themselves into a corner and they just kind of on their way out of it. And I don't know. It's hilarious. I see it on a lot of different aspects in different ways. How's
So,
how's things been going with the homeschool stuff though, man? Like, I mean, I know you guys are growing exponentially, man. I've seen your websites had some upgrades and stuff like that since the last time I was hanging out over there. And I mean, I see you still pumping it out all over the internet, dude. Like, you can't not see you when you're somewhere, even if you get banned, because I know you've had to re-up on a couple accounts there.
Yeah, I've had two nukes with two with over 80,000. I don't know what the real follower count was because they usually accounts like that they just cap it after a while and people follow and the count doesn't go up. But yeah, things are going great, and we started January 1st of last year is when I started doing it full time. Before then, I was kind of doing it as a side thing, and we had a monster year. We really grew a lot. And as I came into this year, because one of my good friends is a Marine gunnery sergeant for 20 years, spent 20 years overseas. And, one of the things he talks to me about is how you always want to have evaluation points where sorry about that. That cut me off.
No, you're still here.
Where you have evaluation points, you look at what you're doing, and then you make your plan of what could we change and then what could we do better. And as I come into 2023, the objective now is to start bringing in other people and expanding. And I put out a post because as much as we've grown, putting together a full K through 12 curriculum is a monumental task. And that's what we're going for now. Full K through 12, everything.
nice.
And that's what we're going for now. And but that costs a lot of money, and I don't do debt because debt is how you get controlled. You can't build a freedom-based business when you're taking bank loans. It's why Oreo tries to sell your kids.
I can tell you there's ways to get it in a safer route that is not the traditional, but I can help you later. But there's ways to get access to, because certain debt is good debt.
Here you go with the libertarian shit.
No, not libertarian. I'm talking business, like
I'm
economics.
busting your balls. I'm busting your balls.
There's good types of debt and negative debts. Like there's different types. So it's not all bad, especially if it's more a future. It can exponentially grow you. There's companies that do something like that analyze what you're doing, and they do it based off the analysis of your current cash flow. So there's a million different things, but it's very interesting what you can do now.
I know you're the go-to guy with a lot of information like that because you're always into you've shown me things in after chats and prior chats and stuff, and I'm just like, geez, look at Luis, like he's Mr. Big Shot up there. I feel like Mr. Little Guy, like Mr. New York City.
No, Luis, I appreciate that, and that's like there are many different ways to do things, and I agree that there are certain situations where you take the debt and it's not quite as
not dangerous.
But what I try, especially with debt for me, like I live my life out of debt. I don't even have a mortgage on my house.
Oh no, that's positive. That's great. Like there is nothing wrong with that mindset. It's good. It's more of when it comes to expanding business, debt is a normal process of growth. It's just a normal constant process.
That's what they say, but and I get that because running a business, you see how expensive.
And you can get the loans from non-traditional sources. You're not exclusively tied to regular banking sources.
No, I get that, but I also see how how Oreo goes from a cookie company to a company that pushes transgenderism. And when you look back, well, hear me out. When you look
who owns Oreo? Wait, who owns Oreo? Nabisco or was
RJ Reynolds?
So there's your answer.
When you go back and you look from March of 2020 and what happened and everything after that, you saw virtually every company in the United States of America putting on masks and push.
But you know why, right? You know who owns who was with one of the biggest shareholders?
Who's that?
BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street.
Yeah, because they're all in debt. They're all controlled. They're all owned.
No. Well, it's shareholders, not really debt. So
right,
some of these companies have no debt.
Yeah,
these companies. It's like Apple. Apple bows down to this, and Apple has trillions of dollars in valuation, right? And trillion and something, and has 200 billion in liquid cash. And what they do, for example, because it costs them too much money to bring the money into the country, is that they issue a debt against them the money that they already have. So their debt is to themselves. But anyway, and they pay interest to themselves, and then that's how they not pay taxes on the money. So there's different tactics to it all, and it's based off a different form of control. But yes, it's not right that they are all pushing an agenda of such a type for on purpose, because it's a potential depopulation agenda, it's a potential mass confusion agenda. It's also, you also have multiple countries playing a role in this. You don't think, you think this is all US based? It's not all US based. There's multiple countries playing. We're playing a game against other countries, and other countries are playing games against this game.
Yeah, there's many different interests that are fighting for power, vying for power, and they have agendas. But ultimately, the way all of these companies get controlled, and they go public and they sell their shares, and their motive is profit. So what? Then someone comes in and they get a controlling interest in your company, and you're not a freedom-based company anymore. You're a soulless corporation, of course.
Or you're like Cargyle and you're literally the devil incarnate, but you're private.
Right, that's what happens. So
And nobody knows them. Nobody, like,
Now-
I've said
now,
that
I've-
company
I've
to people,
actually-
and they're like, "What's that? What's Cargyle?"
I talked to a guy. It's been a while since I've talked to him, and I think I might have scared him. But he does. His company is neither. His company is private membership based.
private membership association, PMA.
Yeah, and it found him some interesting loopholes and stuff like that in a lot of the things he was doing, because you unless you're a part of it, you can't be a part of it.
Well,
And
many places they use that loophole in order to do things like sell alcohol. So if you're part of a club, you can just sell alcohol
interesting
to those
interesting.
club members. They just have to pay a nominal fee, but you can make it $1. So in a way, in New York and other places, like, that's what they're doing here. They're selling you weed and you become a member. And in other places, you have to get the license potentially. So that's a loophole. So you don't have to get the license, I think, is to become a member to a place. But I'm not sure.
I like that because
I haven't
I'm against the weed license, because
The weed license is to take away your gun rights.
Yeah, they're totally using it to take away gun rights. Like, it's another one.
Because you can't get a gun license if you have a weed license.
Mm-hmm.
Nice trick, huh?
Ridiculous, right? Like,
They catch you stoned and they took away. I mean, you shouldn't be stoned and have a gun. Let's be real. You shouldn't be playing around with guns stoned.
Oh, okay, yes. For the sake of the show, we don't do that. Like,
you never play around with firearms while intoxicated under any substance of any kind in the history of your life. Never do that. There's too many videos online of what happens, the consequences of it.
You could be there and you can be the sober guy while you're watching if you're in a good distance. Oh, Brett, I've seen you recently on there talking a good bit about that, kind of what you were just, getting at, about how a lot of the corporations and stuff like that are all seemingly pushing an agenda. And, I've took a stance on a lot of things personally, but then, like, I'm constantly trying to promote your not corporations. You know what I'm saying? Like, your work, obviously, and other, like, I call them like my friends in Liberty at the beginning of the show and stuff in the opening segment, but it's also just basically shop local, but even on a global scale, because you can still support, like, your homeschool thing, even if you're over in Washington State or something like that, and I think that if we can take more power away from a lot of these corporations, I've seen more people turning to your farm stands and your local this, that, and the other, or going to the local strip of their town or whatever and spending their money there. And that, spending that $50 at your local barber shop goes a lot further than spending $50 at Great Clips. And I think more people need to start pushing for that. I there's a lot of interesting people that we've had in and out over the past year ourselves, that's just what we're doing. We're trying to create alternative answers to the garbage we're fed. I know you probably seen earlier today about What was it that they're trying to get rid of the IRS with the thing you were talking about it earlier, Luis?
Oh yeah, I mean they're not going to, but if we live in this nice new reality where anything is possible, because
Hey,
after Trump got elected, everything was possible. Uh,
I mean, when Bill got elected, anything was possible. Let's
Bill
be
Clinton?
real.
I mean, Bill Clinton was charismatic. Oh, speaking about what you were saying, I just saw another post of um the adult performances in Florida, I think.
Okay.
Arkansas bill formally classifies drag performances as adult-oriented businesses, bans children from attending. Wow, that's such a simple law. Coming from Arkansas, it's so simple.
Wow.
I don't know why they don't run that same law nationwide because everybody's in agreement on that subject that understands what a drag show is. It's a highly sexualized act 90% of the time in some capacity or another, maybe verbal or physical or both.
Thanks.
But
We
I was looking up the exact details, but they're trying to ban the IRS essentially.
uh,
That's a yes. That was like today they were saying that they're pushing for a vote, but it's not going to happen.
my favorite one is the one that Thomas Massey puts up every year about defunding public schools.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you really your opinion on this is when it comes to the school system, you've been seeing this systematic like erosion of trust. Hey, how you doing, Neptune? So
Neptunes.
you've been seeing the systematic erosion. Have you tracked as well the exiting and where have you seen? Do you know like more data? It's like in these states, there's more exits, or like what have you been learning about this process and this change of people moving away from the established state system?
Yeah, well, I get to see it a lot more than other people because I have so many people contact me every day. And if you look back to 2020, there were about 3 million homeschoolers in the United States of America. Well, now there's 11 plus million, and it's the fastest growing grassroots freedom movement in modern American history. And I kind of fell into it with this happening, but kind of like what Jim Bob talked about, where people are recognizing one, the problem with the system, and two, the power of building these parallel systems. And the beautiful thing about the United States of America, as corrupt as it could be, as corrupt as the corporations and the bureaucracies can be, it's actually very conducive, very permissive of people building parallel systems. And we have 11 plus million homeschoolers, a lot of them in the Beast, a lot of them in California, a lot of them in New York, a lot of them all over the place. And on top of that, we have all types of grassroots freedom movements coming about. In September, I gave a speech in Missouri at the Bertaria Times magazine national convention. And there were thousands of people there. And nearly every one of these people were married. They had lots of children. There's children running around everywhere. All these people homestead, right? They have something called the Great Bear Trail where you could go on there and find out, hey, these are local organic farms, freedom-oriented people. And instead of buying from Trader Joe's, instead of buying from Walmart, like Jim Bob said, you can buy from people that you know, that you trust, that actually are part of your nation, which is something that is people are, why is everything so tyrannical? Well, people lost their nation. It's not about here's a state and there's a country border.
Well, it's the erosion of cohesion. And okay, so I'll mention, so when media started to decouple, it actually started to create the tribalism. So indirectly, mass media kept people together because it created common collective narratives. The moment entertainment exploded and diversity of all minds started to show up, then slowly people became who they were, whatever version of that is, or at least what attracts their attention. That applies to also to language and so on. I mean, if you look at just what is Puerto Rican television when I was growing up, it was horribly bad. Like horribly bad, not in the production sense, but horribly bad, like what they're teaching you. I mean, I'll tell you, the comedy was great though, but what they were showing, it was gutter trash, and that's why, like, it's what the state wants. The state wanted Puerto Rico to not reproduce, even though they promoted it heavily, but they wanted to depopulate and kick us all out, and that's exactly what they're doing right now. They kicked out 1 million of them through poverty, and now they're absorbing it through tax loopholes, which, it's like this weird, terrifying situation of like, this can be fixed, but nobody wants to fix it. They just want to continue to extract disaster capitalism, and that's happening all over the country. Disaster capitalism happening all over the country. You see the East Coast and the West Coast, and sometimes the South, absorb from the center all of the resources, and that's why there's also a separation of culture.
Ultimately, it's us. We do it. The state could try to do everything they want, but we allow our children to watch Netflix, and we put on the garbage, and husbands ignore their wife and they spend their time watching pornography. And you take an example. You look at you're in New York. You look at the Hasidic Jewish population in New York, and the reason they are so economically prosperous.
Actually, they're not. 90% of them are on welfare.
Yeah, I worked as essentially a social worker there for a while, and all of those people, you can't listen to statistics, because what would happen is I would go to their houses, and this is what I did for a living, and you'd show up at their house, and I'd walk up the driveway, and there'd be a multi-million-dollar house in the most affluent towns in the United States of America, and I mean, they would have BMWs and these nice cars, and the nicest stuff and chandeliers. And I had to take their insurance information. And almost every time where I take their information in these houses, they all pulled out Medicaid cards. And the reason for that is they understand how to work the system, which is actually a downside of their culture. But so don't buy into the statistics that they don't do.
No, I understand what you mean, but still, the number is disproportionate. Like, they're still, like, I know that there's a percentage of them that are making money, and on the books they're not. I know that, but it's still like the majority are on Section 8 because they're still in Section 8 housing, and not everybody can play that game, period.
No,
I get what you're saying, but not everybody can play the game. But yes, I know. I've met some millionaires that are on Medicaid. I'm like, dude, at least, like, because some people push it and they have free housing too. And I'm like, you are pushing it too far, bro. Free housing plus Medicaid, and you're making how much? Like, that's too much. That's ridiculous. That you're leeching.
They, as a culture, are system abusers. But what they do very well as a culture is they have a nation. They understand that they
stick together. They work together.
They buy from one another and they sell to one another, and they take care of one another. When they have weddings, they make sure that that young couple is set moving forward. They have a nation. And what we've lost in the United States of America, as everyone looks at, this is on the television, or that's the situation, or they're pushing this agenda or that agenda, is that the way you get through that is you stop buying at Walmart. The way you get through that is you turn off Netflix and you rediscover who your people are, and you start to build parallel systems. And that is how you defeat the
parallel
system.
Economies. That's what the system doesn't want. They don't want everybody to unite.
We were talking about this the other night, becoming more community driven and more like self-sufficient in your area. Like you do a good job of governing yourself every day without interference of the federal government. Each and every one of us do. And you're right. If you can be more proactive in your little, like, you're down here in the South. So I'm not 100% sure, but with me and Neptune both being down this way, we know there's a lot of these little small southern towns that are still in existence out here. And first thing people think is like, oh, it's a racist place. And I'm just like, no, dude, the South's great. It's a melting pot of everybody. And like, yeah, you'll end up in these little small towns, and if you can be more proactive in your own community and supporting your community and, shopping local and doing things local and this, that, and the other, you can build that sense of things back. That I'm not a churchgoer myself, but I do know down here in the area, we have a lot of Baptist churches, like left and right. You can't go up the street without seeing a church one side of the street from the other. And I do know that like those church communities, with them being in these small southern towns, they're not as much like the big ones you see trying to shove things down people's throat. More or less, they're the ones that are a bunch of community folks hanging out together and doing for one another and scratching each other's back. And I think that's a reason
Well,
I love being down where I am, is because it is a small town. Hell, town's so small there's not even a hospital here. But I don't know, you got a little more push and pull. You can go talk to the neighbor and be like, "Hey bro, I got extra eggs. Got anything you want to trade for it?" He's going to be down. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a minor example, but there's a lot of other things in that same system that work. And I think the more we can do for ourselves and each other locally, the better off we are in general. Like we just need to keep building our system while Rome crumbles. Like let them crumble. Let Washington eat themselves. Like y'all have it. We're going to keep doing our thing out here in the sticks.
yeah, and hey, Brett, I think I have been on one episode with you before. Sorry for being late, Jimmy. I did have a thought on that, by the way. Uh, I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and I grew up in church. And you know, for all the people that will call the South flyover country for all it's worth, something about community identity and getting reconnected to your culture, especially in small towns. And I think this is true and should be true everywhere, but especially in the Southeast, is that if there is one thing, and having grown up in the church, literally being in church all the time, and pretty much distanced me away from religion in the whole shot, is that if small churches do one good thing for their communities, is that small churches do charity better than anyone else, because that is the monicum of what it means for a community to come together, especially when something happens.
Absolutely.
That is something that I think that uh, community identity really needs to get back, especially to your point that I think communities have lost their way. We've lost our identity as a people.
Everybody's transplants and nobody wants to talk to their neighbor. They're scared of their
Yeah,
neighbor.
there are so many underlying elements we've covered in the past. Like there's so many ways in which we actively avoid interacting with our neighbors. Face to face conversation has pretty much disappeared, and I constantly mention these being a source of that poison is the phone. Go out anywhere, you can't see every other person's got their phone up. There is no interaction between humans anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's depressing. So that was all. I just had to share that thought that at a community level, I think that is super imperative. If people could actually come together and talk to one another, uh, our local communities would thrive and have not even so much as give a damn about what the federal government thinks.
Yeah, it's hard to um it's hard for someone to get at you and tell you to put on a mask or get out of the store when you've known them and you're friends with that person. And I think what you see in a lot of these big cities is people are, although they live close, they're so disconnected that they all act like animals toward one another. But for example, when I went from New York and came down south, it was completely different down here, where no one, just out of politeness and respect, no one would act toward one another the way they did all the time in New York. Or why don't you put on your mask and get out of the store? And it's a completely different culture, and it just comes from,
Yep.
at least where I am, a lot of it. You guys brought up the churches. The churches do a great job in this community of just that, building community and holding events for, they do a lot of like back to school events for the children.
Mhm.
And
I wanted to ask, based off what you're working on, have you explored the idea as well of building some form of a net for the adults? like some
Yeah, well,
form of like a way to also bring certain groups together in certain places for the adults as well, like creating alternative ties that can give them the opportunity to show up at a place to not just get inebriated but just share.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is that we actually have a lot of adults take our homeschool classes, and I get that all the time. People make comments. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. People make comments on my videos and say, "Oh, I wish this was for adults," and I say, "Yeah, we have plenty of adults." And then next thing you know, they sign up.
Whoa.
But before I did bring up the Bertaria Times event I was at. Well, there's an app, the Bertaria Times app that I'm on, and that's exactly what it is. Where it's these people all over the country who are freedom-minded, who are homesteaders, who are homeschoolers, who grow their own food, who start small businesses, and they all meet there, and they actually have meetups all over the country. I've been to a few in North Carolina. I've been to one in Pennsylvania. I went to the event in Missouri. So these type of grassroots things are happening all over America.
What did you call it?
Bertaria Times.
Bear. Never heard of it.
Oh, I feel like I've heard that somewhere before.
Bertaria Times.
Oh yeah, you guys should get on there. You'll be blown away with just how beautiful the community is, and
It's a weird bee. Oh, well, it's got a great rating and thousands of ratings. So okay, cool.
oh yeah, they have over 10,000 members on there. That's what I mean when I say there's like serious grassroots freedom stuff going on.
That's interesting. Cool. That's the thing is like that the good thing about how the internet fractures and decentralization starts to commence, the power that comes from decentralization, and I can see why there's a physical form to it as well, is eventually you will have token systems embedded in communities that are like outside of the current system, and they will use blockchain in order to facilitate exchange between each other in a frictionless manner. There will be likely physical options available, but blockchain for even small communities can be very bountiful. We were talking to somebody that was trying to do that in Alaska.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah. Well, I mean, when you guys in your city life can stick with that. Me and us Flintstones are going to be
No,
out here,
but
trading
even
rocks, and I'm
people,
okay with that.
no, but this is
Traded
the
eggs,
thing.
man.
Even
Bullets and beans, sir.
in those environments, you can have an internal system.
I know.
That's the
No. I
great
just
part about alternatives. But trust me, if I can pay you with just literally flicking my wrist in 10 years, or go get the waters of cat, like most people, even if it's free, they're gonna move the arm. But cash is gonna still be around for a while. It's not gonna go away.
no. Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
I'm going back to silver.
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Silver's probably one of the most stable things on the market there is. I'll give it
And
that.
silver is undervalued, honestly. It's heavily undervalued. It's
Sure.
manipulated, undervalued. I
Yeah.
mean, gold is a mix, but silver's definitely undervalued.
I'm sure Kurt would love to be on for that part.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you can look it up. I'm not saying go spend your savings on it. I'm saying simply study it. Silver's interesting. There's a reason why silver is rare now. It's because it's used on everything, unlike gold.
Unnecessary mid-episode plug for our sponsor, Kirk Elliott, PhD.
Right.
Sponsor one, sponsor two.
Right.
Well, he said silver. They said silver first.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kirk got that thing going on, but like you're saying about like the silver and the prices, you're right. Like it's crazy if you're lucky enough to come across an early coin that is actually silver. You can have a dime in your pocket that's worth like $15 and you don't even realize it. You're like, what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's completely silver. I run across them occasionally, especially because I'm a big cash user. Like I am that guy that is going out of my way to make sure that I have cash, and I'm totally going to pay in cash. And people are just like, why are you still carrying cash? I'm just like, I'm
Sir,
carrying
but
cash,
when you get
man.
Pablo Escobar money, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get rubber bands and you're just gonna like flip them in and then put them underground. Come on, man. Come on.
Man, there's still money out here buried from Jesse James somewhere. I'm gonna find it one day.
Interesting. If you were to find money from 120 years ago, would you have it's be worthless? Nobody's going to exchange you the value of it because that version of the United States doesn't exist.
So I just wanted to interject for a moment too. Like while we're talking about bartering and such, Luis, I don't think I've ever shown you these. Jimmy, I know I've shown you.
Is your silvers?
I have a few. I need to get them properly appraised, but I do have some here. Do got a couple. I've got a few half dollars, few dollars, but I've got a bunch of these. And for bartering down the line, if you can recognize that, that's an $8.
Yeah.
I've got a whole baggie of these.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, something like that would come in great for bartering because it's real
Yeah.
silver. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be
Yeah, I
able to
just
get
pulled it
somewhere
out the
around with
chest.
it.
But I also have a buffalo nickel.
Oh, nice.
It's not wanting to focus, but anyway.
I've been carrying around a couple bicentennial quarters for about 2 weeks now because I got them back in change randomly. So I was like, I ain't
see
seen
them
any of these in a while.
And
Oh, now do you see what they're doing now? They're just launching events.
bless you guys with some good luck too. $2 bills.
$2 bills.
You know, that's the weird thing about the $2 bill is that it's still printed.
Yeah.
It's just nobody goes to get it.
But I
it's
just
still
wanted to share
printed.
that. Yeah, I just wanted to share that, like, you know, in the bartering side of things, that's pretty
Why
cool.
do you think
And
they
this is my
haven't
little-
changed the $1 bill?
That I have no idea.
Is there any thoughts of why they haven't changed? I know the 20 is the most used pretty much, but why not change the one?
That one, I have no idea on that one, but you know the one that really blows my mind? Is it the penny that costs
Yes.
more to, is it
There's
the
no
penny?
reason with inflation and everything, they should just round everything to a fifth.
Yeah.
And eliminate the penny. Eliminate the penny.
Yeah, I
Everybody
was
said it
thinking-
for years. Eliminate the penny.
Nope, I'm against that because I'm totally for the people that show up in the tolls and give them pennies for the shit they deserve. Like, you know, like that toll roads piss me off because Georgia's a great example. They added a 23-cent gas tax because they promised us extra lanes for 75, and they gave us our extra lanes for 75, but they're pay lanes, and you can only use them if you pay for them.
Little dicks.
Right. Like, and I've seen stuff like that go on all over the place, and I'm totally against a toll road, like for that kind of aspect of it, because I'm just like, y'all are just using this to make money. Like,
And that's the thing. That's an aspect of gatekeeping to an extent.
yeah,
Gatekeeping of access.
yeah, dude, that man, I don't know who's familiar with 75 southbound. I know Tristan is, but you don't travel on 75 between the hours of 5:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. at night because it's going to take you 2 hours to get 40 miles.
75 is a mess. And so is 16. They've been shutting down 16 at night outright, and it is scheduled to be closed for the next several months for a widening project.
Where are you going to
I'm
go?
sure we'll
How
see
are you
that.
going to get this way?
You got to go. You have to take either, I think it's
Back roads?
it's the highway that runs parallel. It's the one that will take you to Macon.
475?
It runs parallel with 16 all the way up to Macon.
Okay.
But yeah, they've got it shut down between the hours of like 9 p.m. and like 5 a.m. So if you're traveling at night, yeah, you're not taking the interstate.
Jesus.
So what do you guys think about the digital dollar?
I'm not a
Central
fan.
bank digital currencies that's coming in May. It's May. It starts in May. So what they're doing is I was speaking to somebody that was about like currency swapping that they're doing and stuff. So we're exporting our inflation. That's why we don't feel it as much. We're literally exporting it to other countries. So people don't get, we have inflated the currency heavily. It's just other countries are experiencing the pain instead of us through a complicated, convoluted method of fuckery that we're doing. What's going to happen is every time you send a transaction from one bank to another, it'll convert into the central bank digital currency version. So this is going to be automatic. You're not going to have any control over it. You probably won't. Yeah. So what will happen is, for example, you're sending a transfer from one bank to another. It'll convert slowly. All the ledgers will convert slowly
Does that
into
include
the new
checks?
system.
Like if you
Include
write
what?
someone, that's how it will transfer?
Yes, everything. So it will look like the same, but the ledger will eventually become that. It will take a long time. It won't happen from one day to another because you're essentially converting trillions of in cash or like liquid movable, like that's actually way more than that. But you're converting certain amounts of money because it's going to be the digital first, and then eventually they'll tell you that if they're paying you a salary that you can get like better interest rates. So they'll entice people to use the system. They'll probably eventually also instill universal basic income through the central bank digital currencies. In China, they were having an issue that they were already talking about it years ago, but they are now some certain people, they're taking a certain percentage out of the bank account if they don't use the money in a certain time frame.
Yeah, well, they're gonna
Expiring money is coming.
they're going to implement UBI and base it on your social credit score. And if
I
you're
don't
a
think they're going to base it off your social credit score.
oh, just give it time. If you're a
Because I am
victim,
not. If you're making a good amount of money, what cares do you give? They're not going to base it off your credits because then all the bad people are going to be so impoverished that they're going to cause more problems. And the point of UBI, that's what I'm saying. That's my argument against it. The point of UBI is to prevent extreme poverty that creates more crime. So if you were to do that, you will promote more crime.
yeah, but ultimately they're going to do it. They're not worried about crime, they're worried about control. And ultimately what they're going to do is try to get to the point where they can start shutting people's money off based on social credit or
Oh,
limiting their money based on social credit.
and I agree with you that that is a real problem, and I think the solution is we have to literally add an amendment to the Constitution that blocks the government from taking away people's money. I think that that's literally the only viable option available for us. Of course, it is a debate that cannot be had because most people don't have the comprehension to understand what the hell I just said. But
True, but I mean, like at the end of the
it
day,
needs to happen in the next 10 years
I'm gonna
to
point
prevent
at
the government from doing that to anybody.
I'm gonna point at Canada and how they did do it to those
Oh, that
truckers.
was us telling them to do it.
I mean, the
And they're converting everything like now too. So all the governments, all the banks are converting it. This is not exclusive to us. It's the entire planet is converting to digital currencies.
yeah,
So what is the applicability of getting the government to pass an amendment that would protect that right? I would say it's about zero, which is why I know a lot of people see the benefits of blockchain, and I get why people get behind it. But to me, I find it to be a very dangerous technology that they're going to roll out and use to control people. And they're going to do creative methods. They're going to do stuff based on social credit scores, and we can help the disadvantaged. They're going to do government bailout type of situations where, like, let's say that Ford is going out of business or whatever, some American company, and they're going to say, we can give in a lottery drawing 100 million Americans $40,000 right now, and they have to spend that money buying cars from this company. And people are going to get all gung ho behind it.
So I would say yes and no and good points and lots of things. MMT. Ever heard of modern monetary theory?
No.
Okay. It's the idea that essentially we are living in a perpetual consumer system. And I'm kind of summarizing it. If we
Yes. Okay. I did
stop
hear.
it,
Go
if
on.
we
Yeah.
stop it, then the whole scam collapses. And you noticed in 2020 that they turned on the spigot for the first time towards the economy instead of towards corporations. Even though corporations got money too. And look what happened. What happened was fascinating. So that means if they just turn on the spigot in the right direction, it creates overall prosperity. but they don't want that.
No, of course.
You don't want that.
No, what I mean,
They need to keep you like bitching and fighting and pissed off. They don't want you to have roads that work.
This goes into like what me and Bandit like to point out a lot of times, and I think we talked about this so much on the show in the recent months, but I will continue to bring it up until I guess drill it into everyone's head. The whole Jetsons Flintstones thing. Okay. There's gonna be people that want that and want to do it and will do what it takes to be controlled and to be into that. And then you got the people like us out here that are going to come up with our own bartering system, and we have no need to go deal with the rest of that society if that's the plans that they're going to do. And I think that I don't put it past them to shut us off. Like, to think that they wouldn't, I think is kind of silly. But the fact that they could and very well would, people like myself, people like yourself, Brett, I'm okay with that though. I don't want to be in that part of the society. And I don't think they're going to be wasting quite as much money to come and find me and you out in the sticks doing it Flintstone style as they're going to spend the money to make sure that they can keep the dude, behind in idiosyncrasy, behind the screen, watching his porn and doing his drugs and being happy. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Oh,
I
dude,
think
have
in
you guys
the
ever
end,
asked about who
we're gonna
even
end up
funds it?
freer than a lot of the other people are, because it's gonna fracture. Like, it's absolutely gonna fracture.
On you said, have you ever thought about who's funding it? Oh, the porn. The majority of the porn is associated with one company. MindGeek. Ever heard of MindGeek? You guys in Virginia, you never heard MindGeek? Okay, so
Nope.
MindGeek is
First time hearing of them, and I've been in IT for 17 years.
Oh yeah, and they pay well, evidently, because not many people want to work with what's inside of the servers. Yeah. Also, random element of interesting facts about the company is Pornhub is, I think, associated with them too. Pornhub at one point had so much child porn, and that's why they got sued out of oblivion, and that's why they had to destroy the majority of their catalog. They just nuked the majority of their content in the system in order to try to clean it all out. Mastodon, evidently now, which is where all the leftists went, is now full of child porn. But if you look up MindGeek, yes, MindGeek is a big portion of the market.
It's very interesting.
So
I wonder who owns MindGeek. I bet it's BlackRock.
Look, that's, I believe it's kind of mysterious who owns it. I looked into it.
If you look at porn and like how it's monetized with the amount of bandwidth that it would take, there's just no way that
porn literally innovated the internet. So porn chose formats, like porn has driven the internet. Now it's not the case, but until the 2010s, porn was the majority of all web traffic.
Yeah, and so much of porn is given away for free. And I think the reason that it's so shadowy is I would make a bet that the intelligence agencies are very involved in getting pornography onto people's computer. And if you look at how it's been used historically, pornography has been weaponized, right? It's like one of the first things that Israel did with Palestine is they made sure that there was porn on every television, right? At times they put on porn to the point where any channel you put on would just be porn and you can't turn it off.
Wait, explain that. Could you go into that? Because I'd never heard of this tactic, but I'm curious.
You're basically cucking a population. And
no, but tell me, what the heck were they actually doing? So what was they just broadcasting through, like, the TV broadcast actual porn channels? All of them?
Right, to your enemies.
What year was this? I'm just like, this is the weirdest psychological tactic I've ever heard. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just like, what is this? I want to learn more. I've never heard of anybody broadcasting porn as a weapon.
The Israeli army, of course, denies it, but there actually is some truth to this. In 2002,
it is a weapon of war, and it's been used more times throughout history. And what you're doing is you're cucking the population, you're making the men weak, and that's the idea behind it. And now we have a society where, we brought up like that law, that cool law you brought up in Arkansas, where it's like, no, the drag queen thing is an adult thing. Well, they could very easily in the United States of America, they do it with gambling. They make it where you have to prove you're 18 years old. There's a
So there is a
gamble.
counter argument to that, and it happened in England. There's a counter argument to that.
What?
That
Yeah,
means you
but
have to
people
now
want-
show your ID to go on the internet.
to access pornography. And we're talking about people who are broadcasting
Adults, yeah.
bodies, and they're making it accessible to children, right?
So-
This is a weapon against our population, and children are so porned out by the time they're 20, 21, 22 years old that it has completely shifted their mind, and it directly leads to the breaking up of the family unit, to people putting off marriage, living promiscuous lifestyles, and this has been weaponized against our population.
I mean, Japan might be a great example of it. So I'm not disagreeing with you. Because Japan is hypersexualized. Yeah, nobody's having sex.
So, I mean, I know this is not the best. This isn't a website I'd usually recommend, but this guy has the best article with information. I'm going to share it with this about when it started and everything in Israel and the Palestine TV stations. Like, you open up a rabbit hole on me that I'm just digging into. I didn't,
Dude,
I know about this kind of thing. I know about.
Dropped another link in the chat. Sydney Morning Herald in Australia reported on it in 2002.
Yeah. Like this is
Is it in chat? I don't see it.
this isn't like interesting on its
Oh,
own, and
oops.
like I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. Like that is definitely a way to weaken
Here
a
we go.
populace, and the super sexualization of the Japanese people, like Luis was saying, like that explains a lot. That
And
explains a lot.
still
There
they
you go,
censor
Luis. It's there for you now.
genitals. Yeah, they censor the genitals, which I find that so weird.
Wow, like
I don't know why that started or why it continues. At that point, I'm like, okay, I get it, but
You know what gravy will really blow your mind? And don't get me wrong, I'll preface this with I don't support this group or these people. I think, they're not my people. Like, I don't support them, but just as a historical fact, because it's taught wrong, they're like, oh, the Nazis burned books. Look into what the Nazis really burned.
I've brought this conversation up to people before, and people are like,
what were the
"Whoa."
books about? show
So I've brought this up before. I made an old before I got deleted on TikTok. I actually did make a video about you should look into the books that were burned in Nazi Germany, and
Because I know Germany before everything went to insane mode, they were the Hollywood of the world. That's where the most creative people were, and they was very
so
it
there
was very
was
much what is like here now.
So there was 73 books that were banned by the Nazis.
Could you share that
And
sweet-
some of them have some interesting thoughts about it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you start reading into some of them, you're like, "Whoa, why this one? Why this one?"
What were they about?
Well, I mean, it's a variety of things. Like, I mean, you've got some things that are like the time machine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sure, I don't know, they didn't want people to think like that, but when you get into some other things, there's the Communist Manifesto, and some other interesting H.G. Wells books that were banned there. 42nd Parallel, like
The Communist Manifesto was banned by the Nazi German
Uh-huh.
party.
the writings of Sigmund Freud were banned.
Fascinating selection of books that they banned.
Well,
I
that
mean,
wasn't what I was getting at. Although, I mean, it makes sense that they burnt the Communist Manifesto because they were rivals with the communists, and they're
that's fine.
totalitarian.
I'm like, but also
This is a
aligned.
whole list. I'm gonna make sure I keep this. They also did Das Kapital by Karl Marx, What Has Been Done by Vladimir Lenin. Like, there's some interesting books here that you makes you wonder what were they really banning? Does bring to question. I will give that.
What I was getting at is the majority of what they were burning was actually pornography, and homosexual and transgender literature.
Really?
That's the majority of what. Now they also burn stuff like you brought up with H.G. Wells and the Communist Manifesto, and just Nazi type shit. Uh, but part of what they were
Oh yeah,
doing,
the metamorphosis. That's one that you're talking about right there. Yeah, that's interesting.
part of what they were doing was a cultural pushback against the same type of agendas that are pushed. And again, I want to preface this. That does not mean I support the Nazis. I don't like me and Mr. Mustache, but I like to talk about historically accurate things. And I think part of the reason they demonize some of this stuff so much is they don't want people to understand what led to certain historical events, because a lot of the agendas, like there has to be an agenda that really pisses people off for them to accept Hitler, right? And part of that same agenda that was really pissing people off, a lot of it is the same agenda that's pushed on us today.
Luis, do you think this has something to do? Some of these books has something to do with our favorite subject over here, the Frankist?
This well, the Frankists speak about inversion, and it you could say that it's possible they were going against the Frankist, but at the same time, it's potentially a very weak argument because they were such addicts of the occult. So they were
Sure.
probably against several different versions of what is occult ideology. And when I mean occult, we mean all the hidden. What I mean by all the hidden, I mean, if you know anything about the Nazi Party, you know they spend the equivalent of what they spent on the nuclear bomb on research
Yes.
of history in other countries. The
Yes.
reason why Indiana Jones movies exist is because the Nazi Party spent an ungodly amount of money in looking at different historical points in different parts of the world in the what is equal today to the equivalent of what the Manhattan Project spent. Imagine spending the Manhattan Project discovering bizarre stories of the world. That is crazy.
What do you guys make of yeah, and I know they were obsessed with Antarctica and all that, like really interesting stuff. What do you guys make of you guys brought up the occult and like you get into Plato with Atlantis and the truth about even the timeline that we're on versus ancient civilizations. I know Graham Hancock just did a documentary on this. Not that I buy in. I mean, I don't like it's like a douche thing for me to say. I don't buy into everything anyone says. But he recently put together a documentary on the topic of is the timeline really what
Yes.
it
No,
they
the
tell us.
timeline's altered, bro. Like, I am the biggest thing that especially Graham Hancock points out too is the I and the J,
Yeah.
and how a lot of these numbers had either I's in front of them or J's in front of them, and everybody molded them into ones. And it's totally probably actually like the year 1700.
Oh, so you think the timeline is actually less, not more?
Yes.
Well, there is phantom time theory. I tell other people like that's the actual term you can look up, phantom
Thank
time
you.
theory.
I knew there was a term for it.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Just look into it. It's fascinating. And I told other people that, and they're like, oh, that'd be funny. That we're like in the 1700s, is it? That's one of the potential outcomes is that we're in the 1700s.
Well, I mean,
I,
I know when you look at like the Jewish year timeline or the Russian year timeline or even the Chinese year timeline, it's not 2023. Like in Ethiopia, it's like 2012 when it was 2020 here.
oh, there is the 7 year gap. That one's for sure real.
Well, like
There's
I
a
know, like
7 year error, so it's 20.
I know, like I
2030.
know, but I
Now
also
it's
know like the
2030.
Chinese. The Chinese
I
have like the year 5,000 and
so
something.
now it's 2015. I
There's there,
believe now is technically 2015. So that has been almost proven true. It's just too hard to fix. You can't just tell the entire planet. By the way, we got the years wrong. We gotta fix it. Like, it's not gonna happen. Oh, and somebody figured out how to fix leap year. Just add an entire week to December, and that's it.
I seen it somewhere where there's
All days will always be the same. Like May 20th will always be a Monday for all time.
I've seen it somewhere where it's either a Chinese or a Japanese calendar, and it's like a Jewish
The Chinese
calendar.
calendar goes back 5,000 years. And,
Yeah, that it's
the
like
Jewish
the year
calendar also goes
5000,
down.
not
The
the
Jewish
year.
calendar goes thousands of years back, and the Chinese were basically running the planet to an extent in terms of trade until recently. It was the century of shame. That's what they call it. When the British basically made them become addicted to opiates, and now they're doing that to the rest of the planet as a fuck you to the rest of the planet with fentanyl.
Goes around, comes around.
Essentially, yeah. That's
Mhm.
why fentanyl is all over the planet. It's because they're literally giving it away to the cartels.
Yeah, well, it's unrestricted warfare, and war comes in.
I mean,
That's
we're
why
at war. Fifth
that's why I
generational
brought up-
warfare. We're at war
Yeah.
already.
I brought up the porn, and it's the porn, the fentanyl, it's Walmart, it's just unrestricted warfare. And unless the men of our country really start to step up and say it and say it and say it so that young people can start to understand it, you're never going to win a battle if people don't understand what the fight is. And the fight it really is biblical, because ultimately what it comes down to is the fight is your own sin. And the more we remove sin from our lives, the stronger our positions become and the stronger our nation becomes.
There's a really bright future potentially ahead of all of us. We just have to align, come together, and it's going to happen. I see the brighter outcome happening. I know I was literally speaking to my mom. I was like, oh my God, this country's going down the toilet. I'm like, yeah, well, technically already we're at World War III, and they're just drugging everybody to distract them. So what the heck did you expect them to do? We have so much wealth, but it's so disproportionately shared. But we have so much wealth that if the government wants to just basically dole down everybody, they can. I mean, that's what the Brave New World, this is a version of Soma, and eventually our pharmaceuticals will be so transparently integrated into our food supply that everybody will just be drugged all day, and it'll be based off the food. You'll be living in a permanent state of bliss. That's eventually.
Well, I mean, you already do have your biggest tobacco conglomerates in the world behind most of your biggest food chains, like Nabisco and Kraft and stuff like that, are all already owned by Big Tobacco and have been since the 80s. And, I mean, Big Tobacco is already in bed with the government more than anything else. So you can't tell me that they don't already have stuff in the foods. People fail to realize that anything can be put under the part where it says natural and artificial flavors. You would be surprised at the things that are accepted by the FDA to be put under that moniker, as well as
abolish the FDA, fire
I'm
all the
about
current
abolish the
members of the
FDA.
FDA and all in the governing framework, and eliminate the cash incentives and built into it.
Dude,
You
I've
fix the
been
FDA.
for
You
about
fire
abolishing
all
the
of them
FDA.
first.
Yeah.
Fire all of them.
Every last one of them, like that.
Every last one of them, and change the economic framework, and that's it. It's not rocket science. It's not complicated. Fuck.
Here's the thing about the FDA. Their job isn't to keep you healthy. It's their only job that they actually do well is to make it where when you bite into a hamburger, you don't die the next day. But they openly admit that if you eat all the food that they allow and they recommend, it'll kill you. And that's where it gets back to personal responsibility, because it's abolish the FDA, all these things. I mean, listen, I love people's sentiment, but all these things are pipe dreams. But what we could control and how we could shift the messaging is don't rely on the FDA. Understand that they won't let you die when you bite into a hamburger, but if you eat all their food, they'll let you die of cancer in 10 years.
I believe there was something they're pushing now to make it so all holistic medicine is considered a drug.
Yeah.
Yes.
You saw that?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're trying to push that shit now. So
They're
that's
trying to go after homeopathic stuff. But
yeah,
I mean,
my friend is it works in Chinese medicine, and she also just got like ridiculous news from the government saying, hey, you need to have this procedure done and all your employees need to get it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Why? And they're slowly trying to control everything.
it's wild.
Yeah,
Though.
but
I mean, go ahead, Brett.
at the same time, they could try to control everything, but we can grow our own herbs and we can get the right books and we can educate our children. This is what I do. By the way, I appreciate your friend. My wife is an acupuncturist, a doctor of Chinese medicine, but we can teach our children all of this ancient knowledge. We could teach them about herbology from a very young age. There's a great curriculum a friend of mine has, Poella Brown, who has a homeopathy program for kids K through 12, right? And you can teach kids this stuff from a very young age. You could set up a culture where you're growing your own herbs. And of course, within your community, you could even have experts in your community that, we do what we do, right? And we can build outside of their system, because the longer I've been in this fight, and I started out in this fight, many years ago, and I was trying to sound the alarm, and we need governmental change. These pricks don't change. But what I have seen in my lifetime is I have seen people change in bounds. And we can do that in all of these different areas. Like the FDA is going to do what they're going to do, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I think I can get enough of my neighbors to do it too. And that's how we take back our country.
I agree. It's all possible. And lastly, with that,
I couldn't disagree with that at all. Like that's something I definitely push around here a lot, is that we need to take matters back into our own hands.
Isn't the degree of education higher for most homeschooled generally than any public or private system?
Yeah, they outperform public school and private school students on every standard metric. And then there's the non-standard, where it's like homeschool students are so much more entrepreneurial and all of that good stuff. And like, listen, Louise, I love everything you've laid down here. Like you are just a wealth of knowledge, and this is the type of stuff we need the children taught. Like they should, we should have a bunch of little Louises that understand all of this stuff. And then we take the messaging and we say, and now that they all understand this stuff, how do we beat that system? And the only adjustment I would make is, instead of like abolish the FDA, I mean, yeah, we could go for that. That's fine. But
not abolish. We need the FDA, just replace all the current staff and the framework, the economic framework.
Checks and balances.
The economic framework is garbage. Basically, the private corporations are controlling and are telling everybody what to do. That's why the solution for the medical system is actually also very simplified, and it can be done in one sentence. American pharmaceutical companies and the hospital systems and the insurance companies, all three will be delisted from the American Stock Exchange. All three eliminated from all public trading. That's how you fix it. Hey, Kel.
Yeah, hey, Kel. Glad you ended up popping in here with us this evening, man. We miss you. We know you've had it going on.
Your beautiful face. Where are you?
This is Brett Pike.
I just wanted to touch right quick while we're on the topic. I don't want to pause the show because it sounds like y'all on some good content. You know how every car is sold with a seatbelt? I believe every institution, and you're right, Louise, corporations are running things. And that's what Kennedy and Jefferson and a few others, even Trump, I say, was up against the corporate big business people running the show. In other words, you could buy America if you got enough backing. But I think every institution should have a guard dog. FDLA, they should have someone watching, making, how they audit businesses. If you run a business and you got to have your paperwork all together. Every institution, the pharmaceutical, the school system, the educational, everything need to have a guard dog, bro. and they don't. And so that's how they are able to operate above the law, and that's not fair.
Because this
It's
is the
really
reality. They cannot disappear overnight. And
right,
we can't
exactly.
just say, let's go for all liberty and like all, because then they will be the maximum exploiters because they already
Mm-hmm.
have the power.
Yes,
So it's a complicated situation where we need to deregulate and also add more advanced regulations at the same
yes,
time simultaneously. It's like this
yes.
weird situation of take out the old, but
Uh-huh.
also innovate for the new. For example, the Glass-Steagall, which was from the late 30s,
Look,
I
come here.
believe, was enacted in order to prevent the banking and financial institution from commingling funds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Clinton took it out. He caused 2008. He caused now.
Yeah.
It
And
was
he made
Bill
so much
Clinton
money
who
off the
built
prison
this
system.
madness.
And can I point back at something I said earlier, Luis? I told you there was reasons to not like Bill Clinton, and you tried to correct me because he was
No,
charismatic.
no. What I was saying was,
Don't feel bad, Louise. I was one. I
no,
believe
I
to be
hate Bill
a
Clinton. I was just saying something else in relation to that. I forgot what it was.
No, I know. I just had to poke fun, but I mean,
But
but
I
this is
must say
true.
this
I
though.
do see. I think education is the foundation of all of this. And you've got Brett out here leading the cause and linking all these folks together to do the best with this as you can. And I think that taking the education back into our own hands and actually educating the kids on all of this stuff, the things we've talked about tonight, just other things in general, and true history. That's where I think a lot of things have gone array. Like people are not taught true history. They're not taught a linear history. They're taught things all over the place. On Monday you're going to be talking about Egypt, and by the end of the week you're talking about something in China that probably happened 800 years prior
Or
to
you're
that.
taught
But
history about not your country. Like people in Africa were complaining, and I forgot the country, I'm sorry, but they were complaining, why the hell are we taught all this European and American, and like, why are we
right,
taught about them? We don't care. We want our
right,
history. We want
Right.
right.
complex history. Teach our
And
shit.
another thing that's not taught in American schools that I will say is taught in a lot of other countries is about the propaganda machine. Like
Oh
when
yeah.
I went to Germany and did
It's part of
and did
European
11th grade
countries.
in Germany, one of the classes we had to take was literally American propaganda. And people are like, "What?" And I was like, "Yes, you are taught in the school system there about American propaganda. That's how big and strong the American propaganda machine is that other countries have whole entire education classes dedicated to it. And that's when I first ran across Brett a couple of years ago now, doing his thing up there on TikTok and everything like that. Like that's what I seen him talking about was noticing propaganda. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that with taking this is kind of going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, with taking education back into our own hands, that that 11 million people or 20 million people, as you were saying that it is now, that's 20 million people that are pulled away from 20 million kids that have been pulled away from the system, pulled away from the indoctrination camp,
Mm-hmm.
and given critical thinking skills and a way to actually change the world. That 20 million kids is going to make a hell of a difference when all of them get old enough to physically be able to make a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like they're already going to have their heads tied on their shoulders, right? And that's why I really think that the education aspect of it is important.
It's
I've
very
I've
important.
been vocal and against public schools for quite some time anyway, but like it it just seems to get worse like when it comes to that aspect of
You
it. And
won't believe
that's
what just happened in relation to all of this.
what
So
just
you
happened.
said propaganda several times. I was looking. Let me look at Brett. This the first thing he says.
We didn't hear it.
Video that showed up was that, and it's not like it has a billion views or anything. But isn't that interesting
I
that it
like
was
that.
listening and then
It's listening
TikTok
and
first thing
showing
propaganda.
you more Brett right there. Like it's just like
No,
there
but
he
I looked
is.
him up. But the fact that the first thing that showed up was about propaganda.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And listen, education system today is propaganda itself. It's not true education that they're teaching. And you're right, JB. They're attacking education first, and it's by design. When they implemented the Common Core thing, that's
That was
it's
Bill
like,
Gates, by the way. That was
Well,
Bill
yeah,
Gates.
Well, I mean, not
and
just Bill Gates. If you want to go back to the 70s when Maxwell's father was behind the company that wrote most of the textbooks in this country,
mhm,
like that's a problem. That's
yes,
that's Mossad, a Mossad agent and his
mhm.
family educating the American public. Like, what the hell was
Well, it
anyone
worked
thinking?
out for them, didn't they? How much
Worked
And
money
out
do
for
we
them
give
pretty
them
well,
every?
didn't it?
and if
Because
I
we
They
still
could,
don't
pay,
have a client list.
and if
they
I
pay
could
more teachers
Go ahead,
less
Brett.
than they pay correctional. I'm sorry, Brett. I'm getting better at this. Um, they pay teachers less than they pay correctional officers.
Right?
Oh, that's
And
retarded.
correctional officers are watching grown men who done lived, they done went to school and everything. The teachers now have to pay for their own supplies also. Um, and they don't have the backing. A lot of teachers didn't come back to teach, you know. That is a big problem, JB, and you're absolutely right. They start there because smart kids, once you put them in group settings and you slow them down by making them keep up with the group progress, what they're doing is they dumb it down the geniuses of our future to our kids.
There's models where kids from different ages interact together, and then those
Yeah.
kids that
Oh
are
yeah,
faster
exactly.
can easily
Yeah.
just go into the groups that gravitate
Yeah.
to their equality of
Yeah.
thought.
That's
And
something I experienced going into public school. Was I was in multiple accelerated learning programs, and
mhm.
I graduated when I was 17. And the thing that always bothered the hell out of me looking back at public school now is that for the kids that had an opportunity to get accelerated, the school system itself didn't seem to want to, to embrace
Actually
that.
accelerate us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
it, it didn't seem that way to me anyway. And being told that I think fast, talk fast, bothered the hell out of me. But I happen to agree with all of that too. That aside from all of the problems in Common Core, and especially that ridiculous no, whatever it was called, George Bush enacted, uh, whatever the hell the name of that program was. Uh, you know,
There was no child left behind. That
was it?
was great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
was that what that was called? I was having a brain
Well,
fart.
the one that
That was
started
dumb.
closing schools down was No Child Left Behind. But
God,
uh,
it
the
doesn't do
reality
it.
is we need to take away tenure from public school teachers, raise the salaries,
right,
and
It
if you're an
doesn't
incompetent teacher, go fuck off, and also
right.
change the standards.
in
If
the
you're an
in the
expert,
design.
you
Yeah,
should be allowed to teach.
in the design of the school systems today, it does not promote meaningful growth to children. That's why
No,
I fully embrace homeschooling, and
the whole
if I
curriculum
do
needs to
have
be
children,
changed.
they will be homeschooled. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Brett, what's your take on it? I just got in late, so my brothers Neptune and Louise and JB now you know, they are outstanding men and teachers and reachers. So, what's your take on the topic? What Louise is saying about the school system and everything, Brett? I just want to hear your mind, brother.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like going for reform of the school system, but at this point, my entire focus is on screw reform. We're just going to build the system we want from the grassroots level. And, you
I
know,
like that.
we joked about the propaganda, but one of the first courses I taught when I started my homeschool company was a course, Introduction to Propaganda for Elementary School Students, using
Nice.
the Cubs to Bears children book series that I wrote. And from there, we've built on. And tomorrow, for example, every Wednesday, I've been teaching a course on Introduction to Logic and the logical
Nice.
fallacies. And we're teaching children how to spot manipulation and arguments that are ad hominem or straw man or appeals to emotion or appeals to authority. And we're arming children with what I tell them is intellectual self-defense. It's
Mhm.
their brain's antivirus software. So
Mhm.
that when the virus of the television or the radio or whatever it is comes at these students, they're capable of identifying the lies and then have the critical thinking skills to recognize what it is and discover the truth. And then through the study of history, like we're teaching courses on the Bill of Rights and the founding fathers and a connection to our roots. And we're doing it in the context of teaching children how to get back to primary documents. Last week, for example, our children actually tracked down a letter that George Washington wrote in regard to the Illuminati in 1798. And through these skills, children are gaining.
Bad price either, Brett. That's the price is not bad at all either.
You check it out the website.
Yeah.
I had it pulled up for everybody to see because, just to plug it real quick for you, man, you are on the homepage of unconstitutionalawakening.com down there in our Friends in Liberty. Like every single episode, there's a link to get back to classicallearner.com and Homeschools Connected. I talk about you every night we film, man, because you, to me, are the most inspiring thing. And when you gave me the green light that it was okay last time I had you on, I was just like, no, man, I'm promoting this guy far and wide because this is something I stand behind and practice myself. We're a homeschool family. My wife is here while I'm, doing what I got to do to make my money, but my wife's here doing the homeschool stuff that she can, textbook style wise, when she's here, like hooked on phonics type things and stuff. And then when I get home, you never know what it's going to be. We could build something that day. We might have to do something out in the yard that day. It varies from thing to thing, but when you're homeschooling, everything is a teachable opportunity. You find ways to turn making a grilled cheese sandwich into a class. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
about my secret agenda coming on here and what we're doing this year.
What you got, bro?
And guys, let me get this out because this is big moment. So one of the things we're doing going into this year, because I'm trying to build out that K through 12 curriculum, I do out the debt, and I put out a post a couple of weeks ago, just an inquiry. So, because I have a pretty big following, I put it out to my following, and I said, who would be willing to volunteer to put together courses in their area of expertise for the homeschool community? And I've been very blessed because a ton of people got back to me, and I have from that post, about 15 amazing people now putting together additional courses in addition to what I'm doing in their area of expertise. And I was kind of hoping, Jim Bob, that you'd want to be one of those people.
Man, you name it, man. Whatever you'd like for me to get setting up, we'll talk about
Especially
it outside
inside
of here.
Of a TV. That would look so good. The TV and TV.
And Luis, I got to get you on one of these because, you just a wealth of knowledge. So I came on here not just to spread the message and to shoot shit with good people, but I came on here to also recruit teachers because we are building something and I need good people to be a part of it.
Hey man, I'm all about something like this. We'll definitely get a little bit further in depth
we can help
and into how we can help. Sure, as far as outside the episode and stuff, because I'm game, man. Like I said, I've been standing behind what you do, and I believe in what you got going on, man. And any way I can help make a better tomorrow for everybody is definitely something on my books that I'll figure out how to work in there too, man. Like there's so many things that are teachable moments, and there's so many things that we can come up with to teach this next generation. So, because as crazy as it might sound, the generation before us sat around and watched it fall apart.
Yes.
We're trying to play with the scraps that we got left, but as we can see, it's pretty tyrannical, and there's not a whole lot of governmental change we see going on the way we need it to, where building these alternative systems to actually change tomorrow, I think, is the step in the proper direction we need to go. We all raise a good set of strong-willed kids. I make the joke all the time that my oldest daughter is going to take over the world one day because she has that gumption, she has that mentality, and you know what? I want her to keep it. I don't want to squash it. Public school would squash it. They'd tell her to sit down, shut up, and ask to go to the bathroom. And no, we're not playing that game. You know what I'm saying? We're playing we're playing the we're going to learn about life by living life, and maybe some other cool things along the way. Historical stuff has been an aspect that I do with the kids, and science too, with me and the wife and stuff. Because I mean, that's just how we roll it. And like I said, coo- cooking a sandwich is science in its own way. You're going through all kinds of things. There's great things to explain in those aspects. Taking the kids out back and repairing the go-kart or the lawnmower or something like that. These are teachable moments and things like that. I just grew up around my grandfather holding the flashlight and getting yelled at for not shining it in the right place. Where here I'm trying to get the boy involved. His fourth Christmas was a toolbox full of real tools, not plastic pretend tools. No, it's time to get some real good hand tools, and you're gonna get your butt out in the yard and help me too, man. Like, come on, you're interested in it. Like, let's show you how to do it. And I have
Baby, you know
I
what I
have
do for
found that
nephew?
this my wife
You
calls
know,
it child led. I'm not really
mhm.
sure if that's a proper way to do it, but when my kids peak an interest in something, I
Yeah.
will show them everything I can about that something.
Your
You might
nephew,
find what
JB,
is it what they're most passionate about.
my
Sorry.
son, he loves like download game. He loves Roblox and games and stuff. You know what else I downloaded? Kid coding apps.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So while he playing, I'm putting the seed in his head. Hey, study this app. One day you can build yours and have yours on the app store. And also, JB, like I teach your nephew this. When he say, "Oh, Dad, I like that motorcycle. I want one of them." I say, "Why one? You can have five." So we're erasing limitations, bro.
That's
You hear
right.
me in this system? Why desire one when you can have five? So if I'm planting the seeds that he can have five instead of one, now I can help him set up a system that will subsidize him having five. He could ride one, rent the other four out. You know, and the school systems don't teach proper economics. They teach the kid to get out of school to be a slave, not to be have ownership.
They haven't taught
And it's
They quit teaching economics a long time, bro. Like they
long,
I
long
mean,
time
if
ago.
you want to go into the car industry right now, soon we're gonna get massive deals on used cars.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Thank,
Carvana just went
thanks,
belly
money
up.
laundering corporation Carvana.
Yep.
I guess your money laundering operation was no longer valuable because the
$500 trucks are
liquidity.
making a comeback.
Right, Louise. What's your take when Obama was in office and people was losing their house all around the country, and they was bailing out the car companies and the bankers?
I mean, the
What's your
what's
take on that?
coming. I mean, the student loan debt alone.
Hmm.
Ooh-wee.
Yes, yes, yes.
There's no way in hell they're restarting those payments ever. They are likely going to perpetually just kick the can.
Hmm.
They're just going to perpetually kick the can. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to perpetually be like, let me kick it again. Let me kick it again. And like we do with Social Security and with everything else, we're just going to eternally kick the can. And then people that
Yeah.
are paying student loans still, they're like, why
Hmm.
are we paying? Like, there's no consequence anymore. And then once people realize those powers, then you can cancel a lot of debt. And the
Yes.
Great Reset, like so many different catalysts that can come into play.
Oh
If
man.
people just
Good.
not pay mortgage payments next month, if everybody just decided not to pay their mortgages, you
That's right.
break the banks.
Break the bank. Uh,
That's like what I was saying last night. In reality, everybody starts showing up and taking your money out of the bank, and watch them all scramble and fall apart
hmm
because they're going to lose
hmm
their shit if everybody decided to show up and start ripping their money out of there.
Well, what happened in Lebanon? Like the persons had to go into the banks and like take a gun and steal it, their own money out.
hmm
Hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't
You
condone
you
it,
you
but at the
can't
same
survive.
time,
You need your money.
it's
They
your
took it
money.
from you. You rob it back.
It's your money, and you need it now. Like,
Yeah,
Did you
JP
guys ever
Wentworth taking 30% of your money.
study the
By the way,
Great
that's how much
Depression
money
and
they
the
take.
reason why
30%.
the Great Depression really occurred, guys? Did you study how the bankers actually manipulated that intentionally
yes,
uh,
Yes.
and caused the it intentionally?
1929 was
There you go.
fabricated.
it was because somebody convinced our great grandparents to give their
Huh?
gold to the United States government.
They did, JB. Follow the yellow brick road, brother.
But
Yes, sir.
but Brett, I think tonight's been a blast, man, and I appreciate all this insights you've been giving us. And I'm going to take you up on that, man. Anything I can do to help classical learner and homeschools connected, man, I'm for it, man. And that's why I said earlier, I'm always trying to promote you up. I hope that I have sent a ton of people your way, man, because that was my goal. Was I see what you're doing as a community building thing online in a sense, and all of us that are connected in this little homeschool thing and helping each other out and doing what we can do community wise, even with homeschooling and stuff, we will change tomorrow if we can instill true intelligence and education into our kids, instill true history into our kids and skills into our kids. These are all things that are truly important, because it seems that when people get an art degree, if you make them mad, they want to, I don't know, murder a bunch of people and stuff like that. Like, it seems to be a common thing that happens when it comes to people in their art degrees. So maybe we need to stay a little bit away from that and focus more on
Oh,
how
the
we can
little
help.
Jewish boy that went become an artist, and he was a shitty artist, and then he became the leader of the Reichstag, and then the
Had
Reichstag
to. I
burned.
mean, it's a perfect example, though. I mean, you really think about it. You think about the people that are. Well, I know this is this is going to sound terribly phrased, but think about the people that have become, in a sense, a drag on society, and they're the ones that really don't want to do anything, and it's not entirely their fault. Again, I'd like to
No,
reiterate, there's
it's
so much bombardment and so much mind manipulation and propaganda going on that
that's why it's a mix
that's
of
why.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't blame everyone for what's happening.
I'm not blaming them as much
No,
as I'm
I'm not
blaming
saying
the
you
system.
are. I'm saying it's so well designed.
They do a good job finding a way to design to help us oppress ourselves.
But don't you find it funny when I try to explain to somebody? Oh, sorry.
Like, when do we do blame adults? Because a part of it is indoctrination, but
You can blame adults
age,
after you show it to them. I would say
at some age you're supposed to just.
If you show them what's actually happening, and sometimes it can be summarized in a very simple interaction. It's like, look at this, and then what do you see? And then you can try to break down, no, this is what it actually is. And then
we tried to show them 9/11, Louise, and they still didn't believe it. They still don't believe nothing. They call us conspiracy theories when we prove that.
They still believe steel buildings just collapse by themselves.
And the second
not
building,
with the thermite bombs that were inside of the building.
Not this show.
Yes. No. But JB, before we end the show, I got one more question for you and Brett. Like, for parents like me that's listening to the show, right? Because I'm heavily considering homeschooling again, right? I definitely, I'm gonna get with you, Brett. I'm gonna definitely get with you in the near future, okay? For you guys, will my son, like, for he's on the kid that got around me, so I would be doing. How would I keep his social fiber? Like, how would I balance?
Do you know how much time we spend at the park?
Tell me, Jay.
That's class. There's so much class at the park by itself, and there's our social interaction and stuff. If this is something I do like to point out to a lot of people. What was something your teacher always told you? School's not for conversing. Sit down and shut up.
Yes.
And people are always like, well, they don't get the social interaction. Well, school wasn't for social interaction. We
indoctrination.
We do a lot of park trips. We do get out in the neighborhood and play. We do. I mean, like I to an extent, especially during the summertime, I'm trying to be the kind of dad that's like, hey, the street light's not on. Take your ass outside. I don't want to see you till it comes back on. Like, I mean, there's so much things that we can do in a lot of aspects like that, and so much you can learn on your own in even those aspects. And believe it or not, we need a little touch of that kind of classic, I guess, in a sense, conservatism, when you call it, like, for family values. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never understood.
Wish to have a reality where your kids can just roam free and explore without any worry?
I mean, I did. when I grew up like that, I'd get on my bike and ride for 15 miles in a day.
Ain't here, bro.
And you wouldn't worry.
Ain't
But
like
this is
that
the
for that
thing.
street light.
This is the crazy part. Reality today is technically way safer.
Now,
Statistically.
I will say, in the sticks where I am, we still have a lot of the ability to do things like that. There's still a lot of us that can go to bed at night with an unlocked door and stuff like that. Because one, if you make it down the fucking driveway, good on you, but I'm sorry for you. And two, it's the country. You know what I'm saying? Your neighbor is gonna ask you for it before he's gonna rob you for it. He's gonna be like, "Hey, man, can I, can I borrow that whatever it is or something like that?" Because you've asked me, I'm the guy that's gonna hand it over. That's one thing I've always been trying. I like to instill into my kids, like, be there when you can. If you can help somebody, if you have the ability to help somebody in their time of need, do it.
Their greatest blow to disrupt the community is when when the CIA and the government deliberately use crack cocaine
Oh
as
yeah, bro.
and that's when listen, that's when it's two sides now, before crack and after crack. Before crack, you could let your kids, we was able to go out in that community, you hear me? And
They
my
just
mom's
legalized 12-year-olds to do whatever the fuck they wanted in New York.
yes, see,
They just made kids drug dealers again. Congratulations, New York. You just made
and
a
they're
bunch
making
of kids
money.
drug dealers. Great
A lot
job.
of kids that's like just regular kids, they got a lot of energy. They call them, they put them on medication for ADHD, bro. They made a whole category for kids that's normal kids, but because what kid will sit in the classroom and not be antsy and moving around? That's any color kid. A kid is a kid. But they treat and the medication, oh my God, that's a whole nother topic right there. But one last question, Jay, to y'all. How do like if I homeschool the government, do we have to pass some type of test to prove that he's learning? Do they look over your shoulder when you start homeschooling? How do all that go? Like
Yeah,
I've
so
found it varies state to state.
okay.
Like
yeah,
Georgia, we're
Mm-hmm.
pretty. They leave me
Liberal?
alone.
Okay.
Like we
no,
have every couple of years, there's a test that the kids got to take, that the state wants them to take or whatever, but you don't actually send it anywhere. It's for your own records and for if they ever want to go to college.
I'm definitely gonna talk with you more about that, brother. And you too, Brett. And any of my other two brothers too, bro. I'm
But what
sorry
were
I
we
can't
gonna
answer
say?
later, bro. Thanks for answering my questions, man. Definitely.
Oh man,
I made it
anytime.
late.
I was excited to see the screen pop up and see you come in tonight, Cal. It's always a pleasure, and I know you've been going through it the past week or so. So I was actually excited to see you join in. So I appreciate you coming in this evening and appreciate your insight.
Absolutely.
I'm going to continue to go around the table. Brett, is there anything that you would like to throw out there, say before you finish up your evening? Of course, I've got your links, man, but you're always welcome to plug them again.
well, yeah. First, I was just to answer the question. You can find the regulations at HSLDA.org. It's Homeschool Legal Defense Association, HSLDA. They are a phenomenal organization. You go to their website. There's a map of the United States. Click on the state that you live, and the regulations, all the test requirements will pop right up. So, and then as far as my shameless plug, you guys can find my stuff at classicallearner.com and my private homeschool community, which includes all of the curriculum, the lesson plans, the unit studies, is Homeschools Connected. And if you use the discount code FREEDOM, it's $10 a month. And we're building something very special. And we have a really great community of parents who have a lot of experience and help one another. And the children are getting a far superior education to anything that's happening, not only in public school, but I would say even in many homeschool programs, because we're more awake than a lot of homeschool programs. And we're really giving children that education. And look, the world will try to manipulate you. You have to be able to identify it. And then once you identify it, you have to know how to live free. And that's where we get into teaching them how to garden, teaching them how to build things out of wood. We just brought in this guy, Woodshop Bear, who's putting together a curriculum all on teaching children to be carpenters and doing things with your hands, starting businesses, financial literacy, real education that's worthy.
Invention,
And we're just getting started.
inventions. I think every school system should have like a department where a certain amount of kids go into a certain class, and their job is to figure out how can you make something better for what inventions can you make to make life better for humanity. Solar. I heard about this one guy had built something to clean up the plastic out the oceans and stuff. And JB, that guy that you was telling me about the microwave. Oh my God, inventors, we need them. We need them, bro. But of course, they're attacking the inventors too, like Stanley Myers.
We need people who could build things with their hands and know engineering, and that's the thing. Like we saw after March of 2020, and when everything went down, how they controlled people through financial leverage and food, financial leverage and the grocery store. So to me, that said, all right, we need to make sure that young people have as many real skills as possible, because there's always an old lady down the block that needs her toilet fixed. And if you can create what's in your mind, and you brought up the coding, like if you could computer code, you could find work for yourself if you know what you're doing. And real skills make free people.
Oh yeah. And I think the biggest part is, I think the bigger responsibility is to the parent, not just leave it up to the school system. And to see, like, my niece JB, she want to be running the world. You're right. Don't break that spirit, bro. Do not touch that. And a lot of parents, when a kid has a certain quality about them, this society wants to break them to make them conform. And I don't want to break my child's drive.
No, that's special.
Yes, we need that.
Absolutely.
We need that.
Luis, you got anything for me this evening?
I was actually going to mention everybody should watch this short film.
You're quiet. I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
There is a really, really great short film that I'll share now, the link. It's called In Shadow, A Modern Odyssey. I suggest anybody that watches it with the volume maxed out. There's no words. It's all visual and just with the beat, but the music is very important. It's 13 minutes, but it's very powerful, and you'll see why.
I'll make sure I share that with this episode, because I did happen to find it when you brought it up. Neptune, what you got for me down there, buddy?
I ain't got nothing tonight, man. Sorry I was late. Brett, good to see you. Kel, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, brother.
Hey, man, I don't mind you guys being late. I appreciate each and every one of you showing up. And Brett, I appreciate you the most for showing up this evening and making time to come over here and chit chat with us guys. I know you're a busy man. I know you got a lot going on, but you've always got a place here to come and promote your work. If nobody else wants to talk to you, I always do. And I'm definitely behind you in this teaching thing, man. I'll see what we can come up with to add to your curriculum, because I
love it.
I'm for this, man, and I want to help change tomorrow, and I think this is how we're gonna do it.
Everybody's gonna love his class too much.
Oh yeah, you guys know that we're also doing something kind of cool here recently that's a little bit different than what we've been going on. Aside from checking your links when you go to unconstitutionalawakening.com for each episode, I need you to find a place to fill out the answer on the episode, in the podcast, and more for my pirate riddle. We still have a couple pirate riddles that haven't been answered in the past couple episodes, but that's okay. There's still plenty enough time for you to answer it whenever you get around to it, so that you can get you one of these sweet Unconstitutional Awakening the podcast stickers. So tonight's pirate riddle, and if anybody in here knows it, please just wait till we shut off and I'll let you say it. And you still might get yourself a sticker anyway, but we'll keep that between us. But the pirate's phrase you should know when you take 2x4. Then if you place it on a shelf and put it inside a freezer door, what is that one phrase? All right, everybody, you guys think about that real good, and I'll talk to you soon. Let's weigh anchor and have another great night. Bye now.